this is a digital talk run by Jacob and myself at Asfar. We're currently sort of working like informally with Asfar after having done an EFC project. So yeah, really this digital talk, as like you probably will have seen on the promo and stuff, is just like so we can share like some of our insights from our experiences of having done some volunteering with Asfar, and like a kind of overview of like the benefits and reasons why doing volunteering, especially volunteering abroad, is like a really good thing. So I'll just introduce myself. I'm Emma Ferraris. I am a third year anthropology student at Durham University, which is in the UK. And yeah, I'm trying to think what else is interesting about myself. I run Castle Feminist Society, pretty cool. Yeah, Jacob?
My name's Jacob Allard. I'm a second year international relations student, also at Durham University. Yeah, so the talk today, really, we're going to talk about our experience on our project, and then, you know, the kind of more general experiences working and living abroad, because that's something that a lot of people want to know about when they're looking at doing a volunteering placement. We're going to talk about some of the benefits of volunteering and how it's helped us, and then, you know, the skills and the knowledge that we've gained. If either of you have any questions at the end or any points you want to raise, we're more than happy to answer them. And to those people who are, you know, watching on YouTube or listening at a later point, you can email any of us. Just get in touch. The details will be available to you, and we're more than happy to answer any questions you have. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so I think probably it's best for like us to share a little bit of context, just for like, you know, from our experiences. So as I mentioned, Jacob and I did a 2-month volunteering project. It was an ESC project, which is the European Solidarity Corps, like in association with Asfar. So we spent 2 months in the summer of 2021 in Sarajevo in Bosnia. Yeah, so basically because we were working in Sarajevo, which is like where Shanice, the CEO of Asfar, currently lives, and also Amina, who's in this call, we were working like quite closely with them, basically volunteering, but we were doing specifically like internal volunteering. So we were really like actually working kind of as staff members, like temporary staff members for Asfar as an NGO, and that was, yeah, really working like internally to support the Resolve network, which is sort of like an educational network that Asfar is sort of part of and has set up, which like connects young people from across the world and facilitates different like youth-led projects and youth-led educational programs and things like that. So yeah, we were really like working internally for the NGO, and the kind of work that entailed meant that we did a lot of like a digital talk. So things like this, we were finding speakers as opposed to actually speaking, and then we did a lot of like social media work. So personally, I did a lot of branding, a lot of like I'll use the word rejuvenation of like some of the Instagrams and Facebooks and things like that. So I guess kind of pertaining to like outreach and marketing was something that Jacob and I did a lot of. As well as that, we did some work on like sustainability, kind of like a sustainability investigation for the NGO, which meant like basically collecting a bunch of information and putting it together in a kind of like informative document. And with every ESC project, you also have to do a social action project. So that basically means like we had to come up with some idea that was like a project that would benefit the community. So what Jacob and I did was we like interviewed different like young people from Sarajevo, and we talked about like discussed with them the different social issues in Sarajevo and the kind of ways that they were being overcome. And yeah, it was like a really interesting experience. And I think Jacob, do you agree that's sort of most of the work that we were doing? I think that kind of covers it.
Yeah, mostly. I would say you know, it's all well and good us telling you what work we did, and before, you know, we discussed this when we were actually in Sarajevo. Before we went, you know, we can say these things to you that we did, the sustainability consultation and the digital talks, but it doesn't feel very real until you're there, and that's something that we'll come to later. When we arrived in Sarajevo, neither of us had been there before, so it was a completely new city to us. the work we were doing mostly was, as Emma said, kind of pertaining to those areas. What we would do most days would we go and sit in kind of cafes, connect to the internet with our laptops, and we were kind of working there, but with people. So there was the human contact as well, but it was very kind of online, and there were a lot of skills. The work had a massive variety to it, as you could probably already gather from what Emma said. But that was really good because it meant it wasn't, you know, repetitive, and there were different things and different tasks that would come up, and we really felt like we were kind of given the opportunity to actually work and do meaningful work whilst we were there, which was, you know, that's really important to gain some experience and to gain some skills. I would say that the level of work was very manageable. You know, there was enough for us to do, but it also meant that we weren't, you know, just sitting in some kind of hot office in Sarajevo for hours and hours. It wasn't like that. It was very, you know, sometimes for part of our social action project, we'd go and do some filming. So we'd be in one part of the city, then we'd go somewhere else to you know, meet some young people, and then we might be working somewhere else, which was really good because it meant we got to kind of explore more places and speak to more people. You know, we were trained and told how to use the different systems, but it wasn't, you know, nothing too complicated. So it meant it was a really good experience. And you know, I wouldn't worry too much about the work you're doing. That when you do different projects, you get different work, and it depends which organization you're partnered with. But you know, they've got a lot of experience in tailoring these programs to, you know, the abilities and needs of young people. So you know, I wouldn't worry about that if that's something you're thinking about when looking at applying.
Yeah, and there's like so much scope to kind of tailor the work you do. Like for example, the sustainability report that we did, like that was sort of Jacob and myself's own volition. So yeah, I guess it's like good in that you can kind of like create work for yourself that you think would be useful for you in the future. Yeah, sort of like moving on from that, I just wanted to like talk a little bit about some of the experiences like of working and living abroad, because that really is like one of the best things about doing something like this, is that you really gain some understanding of what it's like to live somewhere else and work somewhere else and do something that's like really different from sort of like your everyday life. I mean, definitely for Jacob and I as students, yeah, it was like very beyond what we were used to. I think firstly, one of the great things about living and working somewhere else is that like you get to learn a new language. So I think in all ESC projects, you get like language lessons, which are provided by like a language teacher through Asfar. So that was like paid for us. So we had weekly hour-and-a-half lessons, yeah, ish. And that was Bosnian, and I literally had no previous experience of any like Slavic language at all. Jacob like knew a little bit of Russian, but like, to be honest, it was sort of, we were both starting from like pretty near to zero. Yeah, and actually like learning that language was really useful, and we did really try and implement it in like you know, day-to-day life to varying degrees of success, but like it was really cool to learn the language either way, and we actually really enjoyed like the lessons themselves. So that was pretty cool. I think like one of the other great things about like this kind of project is that you get to explore a new country and a new culture, and we definitely like had the option to do that. So because the work we were doing was sort of flexible, and we had it was like a 4-day week anyway, so we had like slightly longer weekends, and that basically allowed us to go and travel around Bosnia a bit. So we did go to Herzegovina, which is like a different region basically. So we stayed in Mostar for a few days. Yeah, and basically like the because of the flexibility of the work, we were able to like travel around, and that was really interesting and insightful. I think definitely like if you're living in another country, you've got to like take advantage of it. And also take advantage of like the sort of richness and differentness of the culture that you're surrounded by. So I mean, I'm vegetarian, but definitely Jacob took to, you know, was trying all of the like foods and stuff, and we really enjoyed like going to different restaurants and like exploring the city in that way. And like the food culture and the kind of cafe culture in Sarajevo was really interesting and sort of different for us. and also because the staff with Asfar, who we were like living with, and were so like friendly and welcoming, we were able to do like a lot of social things. I think that was one of the things I was kind of worried about, like before going. I was like, what if I just like spend my entire time on my own, which would kind of suck. But yeah, we like met loads of really interesting people, and we definitely like, they made it really easy to socialize. And then my last point on that is that like one of the main things about living and working abroad is that you're like super independent. And basically like our day was sort of dictated, I mean, partly by the work that we were doing, but also like just by ourselves. So much of the value of like this kind of project is that you're like independent, in that you have to like budget, you know, because you do get some money from Asfar, or like at least we did, but yeah, so you're budgeting and cooking and like balancing your work and your other life. Yeah, so I guess this kind of like, I was kind of trying to situate yourself in like a new city and like live in a different way was really, yeah, really exciting.
Yeah, so I guess I just echo that. It's that experience of being somewhere else is really part of the overall view game. That's one of the main things, is trying to organize yourself and manage yourself in a foreign country, and with all the things that play into that, like as I mentioned, the languages. In terms of the benefits, there are so many, and hopefully Emma will agree with me as I say these ones. As we mentioned, obviously there's the cultural experience, the language learning. That's something that you don't get very easily, and to be offered that opportunity free of charge is amazing. And we should be very grateful for that there's a structure in place that allows that to happen for us, and I would wholeheartedly recommend you take advantage of it, basically, because that's what it's there for. Similarly, more generally, it's a new experience, and it pushes you out of your comfort zone. As I said before, it was something that Emma and I hadn't done before, and every day we were doing new things, and at the start I remember we were kind of it was little things like paying some bills towards the end, and I remember there were all these different experiences, and they seem so silly and little, and if you were in your home country and it was familiar, it would be you wouldn't even notice it. But trying those in a different country really helps you kind of develop as a person, because it requires you to think on your feet a bit, and as much as there is the safety net and the the support you get from Asfar, you are kind of taught to be independent as much as that's feasible. It's really good for your professional development. We got help with some CPD when we were there, continuous professional development. It's really good for your CV if that's something if it's a field you want to go into the future or something else. There's many transferable skills, as I've mentioned. I know personally, when I've been applying for a few things for for summer and after university, and it's always the thing people are the most interested in. And I feel so confident talking about it because it was, I really believe that it's a positive experience for me, and it's helped me grow and develop in lots of ways. It's also very unusual. Unfortunately, people don't know about opportunities like this as much as we perhaps like them to, which means that you'll stand out, which is really valuable in the competitive world of today. Also, it's much more fun to say to your friends that you were doing something interesting like this, rather than working a boring job over the summer, which is a really good benefit. And finally, the other benefit is that it's really fun and exciting. It was possibly the best choice I ever made to go and spend my summer out in Bosnia. We had a really good time. I think as I kind of alluded to before, there were lots of like social opportunities, and because the work was manageable and we organized ourselves and kept on top of it. It meant there was time to do other things, which meant we were just having a great time. And I remember at one point, Emma and I said to each other when we were there, like, kind of can't believe this is how we're spending our summer. It's like, it was awesome. It was kind of very, very different. So, but before I went there, I guess I was perhaps a bit nervous. It would be strange to not be nervous before going to a foreign country for 2 months. And beginning that journey, but you really are supported, and at least from my experience, and I think Emma's experience and other people who've spoken to you, you definitely won't regret it, and it's really worth giving it a go, because it, not to be cliche, but it will kind of change your life and offer you different perspectives, which are really, really valuable going forwards.
Yeah, definitely. I think we both said to each other, sort of like once we got there, and we said it to Shanice, the CEO, as well, that like especially in the UK, I think maybe it's slightly different in Europe, but like in the UK there's not a whole lot of awareness that these kind of programs exist, with the Turing scheme coming out as well, and sort of like replacing Erasmus Plus and the Erasmus scheme in the UK. I think maybe awareness is like it's increasing, but I remember for myself just being kind of surprised / a little bit like almost like unsure whether this kind of thing was like too good to be true, because there's so much like on the internet, if you're like searching for volunteering opportunities, things that's basically just volunteerism, or things that you have to pay like stupid amounts of money for that normally students can't afford, and this is just equally as beneficial, and like you're really doing something kind of tangible and something that, as Jacob has mentioned, will really like boost your CV and give you loads of like soft skills and sort of long-term benefits to your like your life and your future development and things like that. So I definitely thought it was too good to be true, but I guess as it turns out it wasn't. I'll just like mention a few of the sort of skills and the knowledge that you get from volunteering, but I think it's probably quite obvious, like as we've gone through and discussed these kind of things, what some of those skills would be. But as I mentioned, one of the best things that we did was like our language lessons, and so developing those linguistic skills was definitely something that I benefited from massively, and being able to use that in real life context was great actually, and really like validating. As Jacob's been mentioning, like an appreciation for a new culture, learning about different cultures, maybe something that not everyone gets to do. It can be really expensive, and doing something like this is quite different than just going on holiday, and so you really get to like delve in and immerse yourself in a new culture. And I think being able to appreciate that and derive benefit from it was one of the best things we could do from that volunteering trip, and some of the skills we learned. Beyond that, I think networking and meeting new people, like Jacob's been saying, because we were able to socialize so much, like meeting new people and discussing and sort of forming those like cross-cultural links and friendships was really interesting and really beneficial to our time there as well, as Jacob's kind of been saying. We mentioned earlier about traveling independently, organizing yourself, like time management and things like that, and those are definitely skills I think Jacob and I both had to like work on a little bit as we were there, because the work is quite flexible. You sort of have to set yourself a schedule, and that was, I mean, good, but we also like you just have to be firm with yourself, and also by virtue of it being like a lot of the work being remote, it was a lot of sort of self-regimenting, and that's definitely like a skill that's helped me this year at university and sort of in life in general. And then finally, I think the last thing that I would mention, like skill as it were, was because you're working internally for an NGO, you really get to learn about the processes and structures within a charity, within a non-government organization. That is probably quite different from something, a company that's more corporate. And it was really interesting for me. I'd previously done some work experience with Cancer Research UK, but very different field to the kinds of things that Asfar's doing. And it was really interesting to like learn about the different sources of funding for an NGO and the different structures and sort of hierarchies and staffing and things like that, that go into making these projects run. Yeah, and all of the hard work and time and effort was actually, yeah, really, really insightful and inspiring. Yeah, I think those are all the skills I would like mention, but yeah, so I say I think a lot of them are quite obvious.
Yeah, so just moving towards a sort of a conclusion now, and we'll, you know, if you've got questions at the end, we can come to those. I understand that it's a very, what we've said in the last, I don't know, 25 minutes or so, it's a very sort of whistle stop tour of it, and it may still not seem completely real, or, you know, it can imagine yourself in those situations because it's so separated from what your, you know, normal life might be, if Emma and I are anything to go by. But I would say that it's a brilliant opportunity. It's a really, really positive experience. There are things that are difficult. It can be hard being away from home for that long, for example. But overall, it's been an absolutely amazing experience. And everyone I talk to about it's, you know, quite a lot, as Emma said, quite enough in the UK that they're surprised that those opportunities exist, but they really do, and you can gain a lot from them. So if I were you, I would 100% go for it. Apply if you haven't already, and kind of any volunteering project you can find. You can just go on Asfar's website and have a look through. Will offer you, you know, a similar experience in that way. It'll be very, very beneficial to you. You know, I think the opportunity to spend your summer abroad and gain things, and for that to be funded as well, is brilliant. You know, what else can you ask for? We're so lucky that those are, you know, the opportunities that exist for us. So just make the most of it and take advantage of that whilst you can. If either of you have any questions, Katrina or Joe, feel free to ask them now. We can just, you know, we can chat informally. They can be about anything. And then also, you know, anyone that's watching this online afterwards, if you want to kind of email us or get in touch or anything like that, our contact details will be available, hopefully, on the video. Yeah, if you have any questions, you can just unmute yourself or anything. I don't know if maybe you could say if you've applied for anything or you know, any things. Did your NGO have ready to develop new skills, e.g. how to interview local people? Yeah, so I would say that they did. They kind of introduced us to who had been involved in the projects before, so they were sort of like already connected, and we met them very early on in our time in Sarajevo. I think it might have been in our first week, which meant that when we were speaking to them from the start, it was you know, we were kind of already had that rapport. I think, you know, as well with things like, you know, languages, if that was necessary, that's something that can be offered to you, and if you need help, it's very accessible. But also, you know, in Bosnia, it was very easy to speak to people. People were very, very friendly, and, you know, especially if you kind of explained why you were there, and you also, if you did make an effort to speak Bosnian. Like, our Bosnian really isn't very good, don't get the wrong impression, but if you made an effort in anything, people there were really, really friendly. So hopefully that is, you know, that's a similar experience in the different locations. Yeah.
But I definitely think, like, specifically about interviewing people, like I do anthropology, and in a lot of social sciences and a lot of academic settings, interviewing is like a really important skill. There are like lots of ethics around it, and but also different like protocols and practices that you have to kind of abide by. And it was, you know, like, it was interesting to kind of apply some of those things that I've been learning in a lecture theatre to, yeah, like an actual situation where it was beneficial. So yeah, in that specific way, like exercising that skill definitely was helpful. Yeah.
Just building on that, sorry, as well, I think being told about an appreciation of the culture, or the kind of cultural education and a bit of historic education, especially in somewhere like Bosnia, was something we were definitely provided, which really helped, and it meant, you know, you can talk about topics with the sensitivity that's required for them, you know, and that was really important. That was something we gained. Yeah. Anything else? Doesn't seem to be yet. Okay, well, you're welcome. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So as we said, if you've got any questions or other points, you can raise them with us. We're completely free to contact whenever. Just be really informal. That's completely fine. Do you have any other points at all?
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, will our email addresses be sent out, or should we just use the Resolve Asfar one?
Yes, I can later send to everybody who asks your direct emails. And then maybe something that's important to mention. So this is a project which mainly funds everything that you need to spend during this period when you're abroad. So there is a grant which every participants receive for their traveling to the country where the organization is hosted, and where they will be spending the time. So at the moment we have placements in Cyprus, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Israel, as well as in Russia. At the moment this is under a question mark, but anyhow, so every participant receives a grant for their travel. Also they receive, so there is accommodation and all the bills are paid by the host organization in that country. Also they receive allowance for their food, as well as pocket money for any kind of costs they have during their stay. And as Jacob and Emma mentioned, there is also this money to provide some additional language learning during their placement. So most of the things are covered. Of course, if somebody decides to travel around or to visit some other countries, this normally can't be covered, but if somebody decides, it's also completely free. Every person receives 2 days off per month. So depending on the person, it can be also collecting those days, and in a way having like a small vacation, which we know also our previous volunteers have used to travel around the Western Balkans. There is also insurance that covers any costs that might occur during the placement. So most of the things are covered by the program, and I think it's a great opportunity to use for everybody who might be interested in this.
To put that into perspective, because it's difficult to imagine, you know, what money pays for what. I basically broke even over the summer, if that's any useful guidance for you. And I would say we lived quite a decent quality of life in Bosnia.
Yeah, I mean,
we were
obviously
able
it
to go out
depends.
and try foods out in the streets and stuff. Yeah, it does depend where you are, but you know, the money is scaled accordingly. So I wouldn't worry about money. It's, you know, they've done this a lot and they know the right amount to give you. Yeah. Okay,
it's
I think
set by the program, so it's what the ESC program has decided for each country. So it depends on the exact location where a person is traveling.
Yeah, it was enough though in Bosnia. Like, I mean, I probably went shopping a bit more than Jacob, but it definitely is enough, like, to kind of get by, kind of thing.
Yeah, and for example, you were staying in Sarajevo for the period, and the placement we have available is in Brčko, which is in the north part of the country. So it's a smaller city, and everything is the double cheaper than in Sarajevo. So I'm sure it would be enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That's brilliant. Well, thank you for joining, Katrina and Joe. As we said, I've said this a lot of times now, but if you've got any questions, please ask. Don't worry about reaching out. I would 100% recommend you get on it and apply. Just, you know, all the information will be on the Asfar website. And yeah, no, hopefully you take up one of the opportunities and have a really good summer or a longer placement if that's what you decide to do. But yeah, thank you very much for joining and listening to us.
Thank you.